Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel for another installment in our Retrospective Figures Showcase series, where I take a look back at older figures in my collection. Sometimes figures I just want to look closer at after a long time and being in my display, and others are actual figures that I'm unboxing for the first time that have been in storage for maybe way too long. Today's figure falls firmly under that latter category and is one I've had for years, and I'm finally getting the chance to unbox. And that figure is the FA-18 Pilot from Hot Toys. And this is a huge throwback to the early years of the company when they were producing military figures before they're launching into licensed IPs. So definitely a look way back into their history as well. And I actually have 2 or 3 other Hot Toys military figures I'll be unboxing in the coming months, but this was definitely the one I wanted to start with. It wasn't the only pilot Hot Toys did either. I think they did an F4 Phantom pilot in Tiger Stripe jumpsuit, and the standout that I unfortunately couldn't get my hands on was the F14 Tomcat pilot. So in case you were wondering, that F14 pilot did have a sculpt meant to resemble Tom Cruise, just like this one tends to resemble Val Kilmer a little bit. So even back then, Hot Toys was starting to ease into movie IP territory and tease us, giving us their own versions essentially of Maverick and Iceman. I have seen a handful of other pilot figures and own a 1/60th Sword Gunner from Soldier Story that's outstanding, but just something about these classic fighter pilot figures that stood out for me. And as an aside, I am seeing some movement in the third-party world with a sneaky Maverick coming out, so I would love to see Damtoys or Soldier Story or even Easy and Simple give us an updated fighter pilot figure. So without further ado, let's take a look at this one and the overall accessories. And he comes with a few interesting pieces, with the highlight for me having to be that flight helmet with the oxygen mask. Just really impressively detailed pieces. And then you get an array of accessories like flares, a helmet bag, some patches, as well as a garrison cap and some sunglasses. One positive, although I guess that depends on your point of view with this style of figure, is that the flight gear is fully affixed, including his vest, harness, and so on. I think other figure companies, military figure companies, would have you equip all of it yourself, which, while a pain, is sometimes one of the most fulfilling parts of putting together one of this style of figures. But here, Hot Toys did eliminate some of the associated hassle, so nice set overall. Now, let's jump to look at the accessories in further detail, and we'll start with the highlight, which again is the helmet here. First of all, you do get a sort of cap that's supposed to go onto the figure's head before sliding the helmet on, and then of course the helmet itself, which is an amazing looking piece. The main frame for the helmet is done in this really glossy white and includes some nice detailing on the sides for the tracks that hold the visor in place, as well as slots to accept the oxygen mask, and some cables hanging out the back for radio connections. You also get the oxygen mask itself, along with a connector for the vest. Unfortunately, I'm not sure what that is, but I think it's part of the radio mechanism. Detail work on all of these, just impressive. The air mask has a wired oxygen tube that's wrapped with radio cables, and everything notches into the radio that slots onto the figure's chest. Just from a paint and detail point of view, super impressed here. Now the back of the helmet has a nice design on it, and the name Blue Knight, although it's strange that the logo and call sign aren't in blue, but still looks incredible. And then the visor actually does slide down, and it looks great with a nice polarized plastic. And look, I'm not completely sure how accurate these are, but this helmet is a little unique, having a bit of an asymmetrical visor. Just overall an amazingly detailed and cool part of the figure. Next set of accessories are more of an alternate look, and first up you get the garrison cap in that navy tan with the rank as well as what looks like the navy crest. Not sure about that, and not sure about the accuracy of having that on the cap. It looks okay, but look, it's not really the look I'll be opting for. And then you get a sunglasses, very much aviators, even including the nose guards, so that's a nice detail. And finally you get a watch that goes on the figure's wrist. Decent accessories overall. Next you get a bunch of pieces that are meant to be a survival kit of sorts, and you get a nice assortment here. One of the highlights for me is this utility knife. Now look, modern figures might have something that looks a little bit better with more detail. Case in point, the butterfly knife that was just teased with the Hot Toys Joker DX figure. But for its time period, having an articulated piece this small, pretty impressive. And then you get a set of flares, a small bottle of water, a whistle, another cutting accessory, as well as this piece that seems like a metal bar tied holding a bunch of shells. Wondering if this is a weapon of sorts. Not really sure. Anyone familiar with this, let me know. I'm curious what this is. But overall, nice pieces. Not that you'll see most of them since they'll be hidden away in pouches on the figure, but nice to have. Next up, a radio and an old style flashlight that both look pretty good. Radio has some great detail work on the body with some actual molded in dials on the surface as well as on the bottom, and some really detailed decals on the face. Now, when Hot Toys used to package these, they actually put tape over the face of the radio, so that did hurt the paintwork on my piece a little bit, but not terribly so. And then the flashlight looks great with the red lens really standing out. Good, I think, to preserve overall night vision. And next you get his helmet bag, which again, nicely done in an olive green nylon style material with some decent stitch work overall. Not an overall complex piece, but still nicely done and nice to have. And the final accessory here actually consists of different unit patches. Now these come in a sheet form, so if you want to use them, you actually need to cut them out yourself. That was an interesting choice here. Most modern military figures come with an almost fabric-like piece, and all the unit decals or emblems are actually separated out. But again, this could be a victim of just its time period. Patches all look good, although they are printed onto the sheet, but they give you some options to display with the figure. Now let's look at the sculpt, and it's not bad for its time. You have to remember that this figure was released around 2006, so these are actually about 17 years old going on 18. So for their time period, I think this was an okay approximation to Val Kilmer from Top Gun. Granted, they don't hold a handle to what we're getting today from Hot Toys, InArt, Damtoys, and even 3.0. But when these were put up for sale originally, this was a pretty impressive sculpt. So just also shows how far 6-scale figures have come, and also how far Hot Toys has come from their early days. Now looking at it with today's standards in mind, it does look very dollish and very plastic. The eyes are missing that lifelike trait we see with today's sculpt work, and the face and hair are all missing the higher end detailing and paint apps. But still, I think it's pretty obvious who these were meant to be. Now the other highlight with this figure, and one that still I think holds up incredibly well, is the uniform. The body's still in decent shape, so it doesn't feel like we're getting any loose joints, and the flight suit with the vest and all the components just looks incredible. There are some aspects that do date the figure a little bit. For example, the zippers are all way oversized. Again, something that for its time was great but has since advanced. And the buckles with today's military figures might sometimes be metal for added realism, but look, the suit itself looks great here with a ton of amazing tailoring and detail work with the different pieces of the suit, and tailoring running down his legs and across his back as well. The entire uniform actually fits really well on the figure and doesn't seem too loose or too oversized. And the boots are really nicely done and molded. Only negative here has to be the gloves. They gave the figure some decent gloves that are actual fabric with a pleather-like palm, but the issue is the hand choice. Again, dating the release a little bit, the hands are basically just a single pair that's meant to be flexible to allow you to pose them however you want. The problem is that the gloves on this get a little bit in the way and can be cumbersome. So overall, once the figure is set up, you won't really see the accessories since a lot of them are stored within pouches. But the figure still shines with everything equipped, especially with the oxygen mask clipped onto the flight suit along with the radio wires. Now I'll say the alternate look with the sunglasses and the cap on, that really does date the figure. The cap's fit on the figure sculpt isn't great, and as opposed to more modern figures, the sunglasses don't really fit well on the figure. And as opposed to more, don't really fit well on the figure. But for me, this was just to see how, I'm just showing you how everything fits, because the selling point has to be the actual flight helmet. And once you pose this figure with the helmet, it looks really impressive. And the key to me to make it really stand out, even amongst newer figures, is really to use the visor and the oxygen mask to hide the older sculpt. Similarly with the arms, you can actually roll up the sleeves, but as opposed to some new figures that have like sculpted forearms, the arms here look very plastic and doll-like, so you lose some of the realism. But as you start adding elements like the helmet, then slide the visor down, and then add the oxygen mask, this looks amazing, and I think it holds up remarkably well. So overall thoughts, I think fully kit up, he looks super impressive, and it does stand apart a little bit from your more standard infantry figures or special forces operators. Hopefully someone like Easy and Simple decides to jump into pilots a little. I would love to get an F-22 or an F-35 pilot with more advanced helmets. Definitely would like to have those at some point, but really happy with this. For me, even though it's a little outdated, it's still a nice display for an Iceman, and I would be missing, and even though I'm missing Maverick, it's nice to have him set up. I think he looks outstanding as just a standard pilot, and I think he's a pretty unique figure that will stand out in any collection. And for a 17-year-old release, I'm still happy, and he has held up remarkably well. So let me know your thoughts on this classic Hot Toys release. For me, again, awesome figure overall. And as always, thanks for watching. And if you are enjoying the content, please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing. And we'll touch base on the next video.